Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.
Hello there, it's Friday night. This is Ghana Tonight, and I'm Keminni Amanor. Let's get into our top stories. Tonight, Minority Caucus pushes for Attorney General Dominic Keminni to respond to accusations government is behind impeachment processes against suspended Chief Justice Tokonu. Also tonight, Majority Leader justifies electricity tariff increment, says it is for our own good and the sustenance of the power sector. Plus, we'll also be in Cape Coast, where more than 20 people, including children, escaped death by the hair in another building collapse, raising serious safety questions about the tourist city. Oh, those are the big stories. If you're just joining us, then you are on time for the big things to come here tonight on Ghana Tonight. Be a part of the program as you watch us on Facebook.com, 3news.com, X.com, and YouTube. Remember to use the hashtag if you'd like to comment on any of the issues we're discussing tonight. Remember to use the hashtag Ghana Tonight. First things first, let's bring you Ghana Brief.
The minority in Parliament is calling on President John Mahama and Attorney General Dr. Dominic Keminni to urgently address concerns raised by suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu regarding her ongoing impeachment proceedings. According to the member of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, Madame Tokonu deserves to receive the notice of prima facie before appearing before the committee hearing her case.
The Attorney General should be speaking to these matters. I think that the President, very respectfully, who has taken an oath to defend and protect the Constitution of this country, including the fundamental human rights, should be worried and should be concerned. And in law, there's an obligation to give a reason for a position. It's a basic right of the Chief Justice for her to know the case or the parts of the complaint which the President considers that she has a case to answer.
The Vice President, Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman, has charged female members of Parliament to encourage and mentor young ladies and girls in their respective constituencies to ensure they grow up to become responsible citizens. The Vice President was speaking when the female MPs paid a courtesy call on her at the seat of government.
We are very proud of the numbers we have now. 40. It's not a joke. And you all know what it takes first to put yourself out, to sustain the momentum, and to get there. So you've done very well. We are very proud of you. And for me, the important point is, so now that we are here, what are we doing with the opportunity? It cannot just be for us. It can be unto us as how we use that opportunity to bring others up.
Daniel Ofori has issued a formal statement addressing the recent media engagement by the suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu, in which she publicly discussed the contents of his petition for her removal and the ongoing proceedings. Ofori noted that the Chief Justice is acting in clear breach of the provisions of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, which required the inquiry to be in camera. Daniel Ufori says that, despite the alleged falsehoods in her statements, he respects the constitutional process and the committee overseeing the case. The National Labour Commission has ruled that the strike by workers of the National Identification Authority is invalid due to procedural errors. The NLC stated that a divisional union lacks the authority to declare a strike during a hearing on June 26, 2025. The National Union admitted the error and apologized. The Commission emphasized that all industrial actions must follow the correct legal processes. Government is set to roll out the human papilloma virus vaccination to prevent the cause of cervical cancer. Speaking at the Global Vaccine Alliance for Immunization Roundtable in Brussels, Health Minister Kwabena Mensah Akando said the government is targeting to prevent not less than 80,000 cases of cervical cancer.
We are projecting that we are going to prevent not less than 80,000 cases of cervical cancer, saving more than 45,000 of lives and saving tens of millions of dollars in our economy. So at this point, we believe that we don't only want to wait till vaccines reach us, we must begin to manufacture vaccines in our country.
The Bank of Ghana has issued a strong caution to the public and financial institutions to immediately stop transacting with 10 unapproved money transfer organizations operating within the country's remittance and foreign exchange markets. The central bank says these firms are operating without the required licenses and have therefore breached Ghana's foreign exchange laws.
Ghana Brief there for you. Thank you so much once again for your company here on Ghana Tonight. Let's get into our very first matter of the evening. An MPP MP wants the Attorney General in Parliament to answer two accusations of constitutional breaches in the impeachment process against CJ Tokonu. Let's get into that right now, because Attorney General Dominic Keminni could be taking his turn in Parliament soon to answer questions from MPs if the minority has its way. Now, these urgent questions, as described by the minority, will address concerns raised by the suspended Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu in her news conference earlier this week. Now, the suspended Chief Justice in that news conference did not only question the constitutionality of the impeachment processes, but accused the government of scheming to remove her and the committee of violating her fundamental human and legal rights.
Unfortunately, every step of the removal process being undertaken against me is being done in a manner that breaks every rule on how justice is delivered in our country. And this is why I find the need to draw the nation's attention to the serious violations of the Constitution and law in the process, and the danger it holds for the development of the nation's democracy. I applied for the proceedings of the committee set up by His Excellency the President to be held in public, so that in the interest of transparency and for the truth in the matters being raised to be made known to the people of Ghana. I did so because I knew that the secrecy of the proceedings for removing justices was not created in the Constitution as a cover-up for any agenda. The Constitution expects that only reasons for removing the Chief Justice and public officials as set out in Article 146 will be the reason for doing so. And especially, such reasons must affect public sensitive national interest or public order or safety.
As you very well know, the presidency has since rejected and denied all the accusations of this grand scheme to remove the suspended CJ. Government Communications Minister responded only minutes after Toko News presser.
Single public official, from the president to the speaker to the chief justice to Supreme Court judges to ministers to all public office holders, are bound by the provisions of Ghanaian law. Indeed, it was the former Australian Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, who once said that when you join the game, you play by the rules. So no public official is allowed to raise him or herself above the laws of Ghana. It does not matter how sensitive your position is. Once Ghanaian law dictates that certain processes be undertaken in respect of some alleged misconduct, the rules must come to play. That the attempts to link dastardly killings of some Supreme Court judges and a military officer to this case are most disingenuous. It's regrettable and should not find space in this sort of discourse. The committee requested that they needed facilities of a certain status that could house their activities and that could facilitate a smooth running of the proceedings. And that facility was available. It is equipped with modern amenities that will facilitate the work of the committee. She is entitled to do so, and we encourage her to avail herself of any opportunity there is to vindicate her rights.
Felix Kwachiofosu there, he is Government Communications Minister. But here's the thing, the Minority Caucus agrees with the suspended CJ. The NPP side in Parliament is also of the opinion that government's response is not enough, which is why the Attorney General must come to Parliament and answer what they say are urgent questions. Let's go to the floor of Parliament.
If the government communicators who are not at the heart of this matter have the prima facie determination, but the Chief Justice, who is supposed to respond to them, does not have them, are we being fair to the Chief Justice? She should have at her disposal everything necessary to defend herself. And in the absence of it, I think that the whole process has been undermined. In the absence of it, the process lacks integrity. The Attorney General should be speaking to these matters. I think that the President, very respectfully, was taking an oath to defend and protect the Constitution of this country, including the fundamental human rights, should be worried and should be concerned. And in law, there's an obligation to give a reason for a position. It's a basic right of the Chief Justice for her to know the case or the parts of the complaint which the President considers that she has a case to answer. That is a basic principle of law.
So then the question will be, what more is there to say? I'm going to bring in now Mustafa Gbandi. He's Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. He's also Deputy Director of Operations at the Presidency. Mustafa, good evening to you. You've heard the minority MP, the Menchia South MP there, talk about why the Attorney General should come to Parliament and answer questions. I'll first pick your initial thoughts on what you have heard so far.
Well, thank you very much. I think that you would have heard what my minister in charge of government communication have said. But what is even more bizarre is that the position of minority is being echoed by a lawyer who himself ought to have known that what the Chief Justice sought to do is not only unacceptable, but it is also preposterous. Because when your rights, fundamental human rights, are alleged to have been infringed upon, as a Ghanaian, your remedies are before the law courts, which itself was headed by these current Chief Justice, the suspended Chief Justice. What it meant is that the Chief Justice is seeking to be herself a more better Ghanaian than all the other Ghanaians who have sought redress in the courts of Ghana. When they lose their cases, when they have their cases, they don't go to the media to speak in the media. They go to court. They win, they win. They lose, they lose. Why is the Chief Justice seeking to think that the same systems, the same laws, the same constitution, the same set of, everything that regulates our judiciary has been applied, and that she thinks that she should be given a preferential treatment? What she sought to do is to consolidate politicization of her own issues, backed by ill, conceived or ill advice. And in this regard, I would always mention that I believe that this is the Council of Apenyomakins, so that when the Chief Justice proceeds on this propaganda, the minority can then follow up with noise. But again, it hasn't got leg to stand, because for me, it doesn't meet the standard that one would say that the Chief Justice deserves some particular attention. It is just to embark on some emotional sort of blackmail to court Ghanaians' sympathy, to the extent that she believes that even the venue where the hearing is ongoing is an emotional trauma to her. Who told her that courtrooms are honeymoon mattresses for persons who go to court? Who told her that individuals who are either on remand or serving jail, who told them that it was convenient for those people to stand trial in the courtroom, and that she believed that she should have been given the Jubilee House for a hearing other than a particular place where she is now? So, I mean, we should not entertain these kind of things. People have taken this country for granted for far too long. And I believe that Justice Tokuno will go down in history as one of the worst Chief Justices Ghana have ever had. Under her reign, the judiciary is a mockery. Under her reign, injustice was pervasive. Under her reign, that you saw that Ghanaians believe that
let me bring you back into the conversation, right? All that you have said, I believe that the government communications minister has responded directly to it. Now, the minority in parliament will say that that is not enough. In fact, when you hear from the Menchia South MP, he says the process now lacks transparency and credibility, that the Attorney General now has a constitutional duty to respond to the issues of credibility and constitutionality of the process that have been raised by the Chief Justice. Do you agree?
I think that, again, it is a deliberate infringement of ignorance advanced by the minority. And what is even more dangerous is that the person who was, speaking on behalf of minority is himself a lawyer. I'm quite surprised. And it therefore goes to underscore the reason why our country has a problem, the kind of people who carry themselves as politicians. If a lawyer can speak in this manner, if a lawyer can advance this kind of lame, poor, roadside arguments to undermine a constitutional process that is ongoing, then it tells you why we have a problem in this country. And so I'm not surprised, because, you see, this whole matter, the chief advisor in the center of this is Apenyomakins. And I've said time without number that the Chief Justice will go home only to know that she was ill managed, she was ill advised, she was ill motivated, by the minority leader, Apenya Markins, and for that matter, politicization of herself.
Mustafa, I'd want you to check, the language at this time. Remember that the Menchia South MP is not here to respond to some of what appears to be verbal attacks you're putting on him, like roadside opinion and those things. Hang on. Please, no, Mustafa, let's not run around in circles on that. You know that you have used distasteful language on him. And I'm asking you to tone that down on that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making your point without saying those things. So let's come back to the question. So you do not think the Attorney General should go to Parliament and answer questions?
I could withdraw that if you believe it's unfair, but I believe clearly in my mind that I wasn't targeting him.
And indeed, I think that's what I'm asking. That you withdraw those things you said about the Menchia South MP.
I can fairly withdraw that, but to maintain that his arguments are not of standard, they were very empty. They don't look as though arguments that has any legal, proofreading, because you cannot say that as a lawyer. For that matter, you cannot stick to, romance something that is, procedurally flawed, something that is not acceptable. You are politicizing a judicial matter. And at the same time, they don't want the public to comment about it. I remember the last time I commented on this matter. They said that I was the one politicizing same. Today, the Chief Justice herself is in the media talking to the issue. Is not in contempt of the process, backed by members of a minority led by a lawyer who himself is advancing this kind of arguments, and we should take it serious. And so these are people who are seeking to approbate and reprobate in this matter. They will go up and cry, come down and respond, in all trying to get government muddled in it. But you see, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, as kind-hearted, as a good leader as he is, will decline their preposterous invitation. The processes, I believe, will continue. Ghanaians are interested in the processes. Even if the petitions that are ongoing today, there are no merits. What the Chief Justice did is judicial misconduct. It's an attack on the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. It's an attack on the integrity of the judiciary. When she was doing her press conference, students of Ghana Law School didn't follow her, judges didn't follow her, but a parliamentary candidate of Adenta constituency of the MPP was the one seen in videos following her.
And what's wrong with that?
Well, your guess is good as mine.
No, I don't have a guess. What is wrong with that, Mustafa?
I'm just saying that the issue speaks for themselves. And I'm just saying that is she afraid to go back to her own colleagues where she was a Chief Justice? The remaining judges are her own colleagues. Is she afraid that they won't give her justice? If the Chief Justice is afraid of going to the judiciary for justice, what about the ordinary Ghanaian? What have the ordinary Ghanaian endured all of the period of her reign? Does that suggest that there was injustice? Does it not confirm the fear? Does it not confirm the complaint? Does it not also confirm what Ghanaians have always complained as far as the credibility, the integrity of the judiciary in dispensing justice is? Does it not confirm? If a Chief Justice is running from her own rules, who should be subjected to those rules? What has she got to hide?
If you say the president will decline this, remember that the call is not only on the president. They have also made the call on the Attorney General. And I would ask again, this is perhaps the third time I'm asking this question, and hopefully you can give me a direct answer to it.
President Mahama and the NDC has a nation to build. We are dealing with corruption issues, how President Akufo-Addo have run down this country, using again her Justice Tokuno as a pillar to escape accountability, and of course, trying to build a Ghana that will put food on the table of Ghanaians. One of such issues is not this one of a Chief Justice going into the public to be in contempt of a process she herself knew is not right. You know, we shouldn't be crediting some of these things. If it was done by, you know, those of us who are politicians in general, it is acceptable or it can be pardonable. A Chief Justice should not go this low. A Chief Justice should not proceed on this path. I'm sorry, it's very unfortunate. It is not good for even students of law that there was a Chief Justice who the law is testing, and then she runs away from the process, go to the media. But unfortunately, the committee sitting on the matter is not willing to undermine the processes by offending the provisions of the Constitution that says that the hearing should be in camera. So we will not hear from a Chief Justice who is busy on the roadside, knowing that the committee is made up of persons of integrity and credibility who will not jump the boat and go to the street. That is why she's doing this. Emotional blackmail, a politician of a Chief Justice. That is who she is.
I mean, you can say that, but again, not a fair comment to make to her. She explained her reasons for doing that. You may not agree with her.
Her only reason is that she will lose her entitlement. So all these things is about money. The fear of losing an entitlement of a Chief Justice who is misconducting herself, and that the nation should run to her sympathy, that her motive of all these press conferences that are in contempt of a judicial process is about her fear of losing money, losing entitlement.
Well, you see, that's just one part of it. And if you're watching our screen, you see we have put, 4 reasons for why she needed this. And the issue about the ESB is only one of them. There is the removal process being historic with high stakes, far-reaching implications for the process, and alleged constitutional violations and illegality of proceedings.
All of these matters are matters that finds fidelity in court. They are addressable in court. Nobody have called for her resignation. It is her own imagination. Number 2, the alleged constitutional violation is not addressable in Justice Tokuno's mouth. It's addressable in court. It's a constitutional matter, far-reaching implications. For every judgment and for the end of every matter, there's an implication. People learn out of it, students of law learn out of it. The implication is that a very bad Chief Justice would be removed out of her own misconduct or out of her own conduct. Okay? And we have not even gotten there. What if by the time the processes are through, there's no reason to remove her? Wouldn't she have jumped the boat? Wouldn't she have jumped the gun? So why is she afraid? She's been going there. Nobody follows her. Why is she coming out? She should have told them that she's not ready to submit herself to the jurisdiction of the committee. Then that is another matter. You go to court, and when the issue is going in a way that you don't like, you go to the street and you are talking about it. Is it not the same thing Godfrey Dami was doing as an attorney general? We all condemned.
Mustafa,
so when your rights are being violated, you hit the streets. You are afraid of going to the court to address your rights. So you see why I always say that the highest form of injustice came from her regime as a Chief Justice toward the people of Ghana. That is why every survey that is conducted, Ghanaians keep losing confidence and faith in our judiciary. These kind of posturing. You see, this is a clear contempt. This is a clear undermining of judicial process and trying to politicize it and to court public sympathy, which she won't get because she doesn't deserve it. She won't get it from Ghanaians. Ghanaians have experienced a reign as Chief Justice, and I don't think that anybody should be excited and jubilating about her legacy. We all know that President Akufo-Addo created all these things so that his government, a very corrupt regime, can jump accountability by the people of Ghana. So these blackmail of, a history she's trying to re-echo.
You think it's a blackmail?
Will not work.
Mustafa, we'll leave it here. I just want to say again, you didn't give me a response to the direct question I asked whether or
Which
not
one is this?
the Attorney General should go to Parliament and respond to questions. Although you said that the president will deny will deny any invitation to do so.
I wouldn't speak for the Attorney General, and like I said, the Minister for Communication have already put out what the stance positions are. And I don't think that the Attorney General, he himself is a parliamentarian, and he is not a member of the committee. Why is he going to talk about a matter that the committee is sitting on? So again, the minority is inviting the Attorney General into illegality if you analyze the issues. And I believe that the learned Attorney General will himself advise what the processes are in due course.
We're out of time and we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Mustafa Gbandi is Deputy General Secretary for the NDC. He's also the Deputy Director of Operations at the Presidency. We'll stay on this matter for a tad, because remember that during that news conference, the now suspended Chief Justice looked at some of the petitions, responded to content of what she said. What she says is the content of the petition, right? And one of the petitioners, Daniel Ofori, is the man you're seeing on your screen at the moment. Remember that Chief Justice had responded in detail to the accusations Daniel allegedly made in those petitions. Again, we haven't seen those petitions. She did confirm, on that day, that what has been floating about on social media is indeed the petition. For the first time, we heard to that. But this is Daniel Ofori's response. He says, my attention has been drawn to a media engagement on 25th June 2025, that's 2 days ago, by the suspended Chief Justice, at which she publicly discussed the contents of my petition for her removal as Chief Justice and the proceedings in respect of the petition. He also goes on to say that the Chief Justice is acting in clear breach of the provisions of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, which require the inquiry to be in camera. As a law-abiding citizen and out of respect for the constitutional process and the committee, I will not seek to go on the path of the suspended Chief Justice, not even to correct plain falsehoods in her statements. When it is constitutionally and legally appropriate to engage the public on matters regarding my petition and the process, I shall do so. And he ends with truth stands. So that's Daniel Ofori, one of the petitioners in the impeachment processes against Chief Justice Tokonu. He's responded to the Chief Justice, says, look, I'm not going to talk. I'm not even going to mention the falsehoods in the statement she gave 2 days ago. But when the time is right, I will discuss the process and the content of my petition. Remember, Daniel Ofori is also that witness that the Chief Justice in her statement said will not be called to the stand, so that she will have the chance, or her counsel will have the chance or the opportunity to cross-examine. Again, the legal matters have been discussed at length. I will not go over it. We will not belabor the point, but that's Daniel's response to the Chief Justice. It would appear that while he calls the process an illegality to even respond to the suspended CJ, because this is a process that should be held in confidence, in camera, the minority, as we well know, wants the Attorney General, wants the President to respond to the accusations being made, because in their opinion, it speaks to the credibility of the judicial system. We'll leave it here for now, but turn attention to something else. Something that matters very much to both you and me. The debate over appropriateness of tariff adjustment for electricity consumers continues, and tonight, the majority in Parliament is pushing back hard. Tonight, the majority leader bounces back with a response after the opposite side in Parliament challenged government's efforts to increase the cost of electricity by about 2.4%. Now, leader of government business, Mahama Ayariga, says the tariff adjustment is part of government's plans to defray ECG debt and rescue the power sector.
PURC and the tariff adjustments. You call on us to invite PURC, but I think that it is the energy minister and green transition that we should be invited to come and brief the House. So we'll make arrangements for the minister to come, and when he comes, don't complain about politicization of the energy sector. Because you all know that the whole of last year, and I think sometime before that, there was an effort to prevent the PURC from adjusting the tariffs. So that whole period, there was no adjustment. But you know very well that bills were accruing. Payments have to be made. ECG is accumulating huge debts, and it has to be paid for. And who is supposed to pay? Is it not the consumer? And if you are not adjusting the tariffs to enable ECG to pay, ECG is going to collapse. They are no longer going to be able to buy the inputs needed to keep the generators on. And we are going to have lights off. The bills have to be paid. So if PURC is doing its work, I don't think that there's a basis for saying that because we have improved the economy, exchange rate is stable, dollar rate is stable, inflation is relatively stable. If all these indicators are stable, it doesn't mean that the debt that has been accrued at ECG will just be wished away.
But minority plans remain steadfast. During a presser earlier, the group pointed to the same stable key economic indicators, gas prices, exchange rates, and even inflation as reasons an upward adjustment is not necessary. The caucus plans to summon management of the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission to justify the new electricity tariff, which will take effect in 3 days.
Gas price has not gone up. Exchange rate is going down. These are some of the factors. Exchange rate, the highest for this year was, I think, $15.527. Okay, that was the highest in this year. The lowest was 10.20. Currently, exchange rate is 10.30. So, why increasing? And inflation rate. Okay, these are the three factors. The inflation as at March was 22.4%. April was 21.2%. May, 18.4%. And then June, the research says is going to be around 16%. So all the three factors, it has to be an increase because all the factors are going down. So we urge PURC to come up and explain to Ghanaians. And I'm going to also inform my chairman, that's the committee chairman, to summon PURC to come to the committee and come and explain to us. We can't accept this, that all of a sudden you just say you are increasing electricity tariffs to 2.45%.
All right, so let's discuss what's going into this new adjustment because I've got you covered. The space regulator, the PURC, in their own statement, identified what these indicators are, what is going into the new tariff that we will be paying in 3 days on the 1st of July. They've talked about why the indicators are low, yet here we are going to pay 2.45% more for our use of electricity in this country. But the PURC has attempted to explain what is going into this. Now, they say, of course, informing us that consumers of electricity and water, that the existing electricity and water tariff have been reviewed to take effect from July 1st, 2025. Now, let's talk about that mechanism. Now, let's go back and look at from mechanism, right? They say this mechanism tracks and incorporates movements in key factors which are beyond the control of the utility service providers. Now, these are the ECG, the Ghana Water Company, and the likes, right? And what do they name? They say the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Ghana cedi, domestic inflation rate, the electricity generation mix, and the cost of fuel, mainly natural gas. Let's see more. Now, It also goes on to say that the adjustments have been carried out in line with the Commission's quarterly tariff review mechanism. So that's what the utility space regulator is saying is going into the determination of the 2025 third quarter tariff review decision, that we will be paying some 2.45% more in water. I was hoping there was going to be a little bit more on this. Perhaps in the course of my conversation, I will bring more on that. Just a little bit more details on what they say is going into this. Because, for instance, on the subject of the Ghana Cedi US dollar exchange rate, they look at a weighted average Ghana Cedi US dollar 10.3052 cedis as the exchange rate being used to compute the tariffs, inflation. The Commission used an average projected inflation rate of 20.67% for the third quarter of 2025. We're seeing the same trend with natural gas. On the subject of energy mix, they talk about the projected hydrothermal generation mix from the quarter under review remained the same at 28.8% for hydro, 71.2% for thermal generation, which means that we're going to be buying a lot of fuel. If you look at it, if you're spending if we are getting 71.2% of our generation mix from thermal. Outstanding revenues, the inclusion of an outstanding debt of 488 million cedis. Now remember, this is what the advocates or the supporters of the increment are using, that we need to defray this debt, make the sector stronger, be able to buy our fuel. They said some 488 million carried over from the previous 3 quarters are outstanding, right? Reserve capacity, they say the inclusion of reserve capacity for great stability and reliability. And the cost of fuel, the inclusion of 27% of the cost of alternative fuels such as distillate fuel oil, heavy fuel oil, and light crude oil. So those are the things, the considerations that they have made. Just a breakdown of that into determining this 2.45% increment. But let's bring in now Benjamin Insia from the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, CEMSI. Benjamin, you think that this is coming at a very bad time, but I've just read out the statement from the PURC on why they had to do this. Does it make sense now?
Thank you very much. I think CEMSI's position when it comes to the power sector is that we always want to promote energy security and also sustainable energy. However, this must be done in a very transparent, very accountable, and also based on regulatory principles. We think that this particular tariff adjustment has nothing to do with regulatory principles, rather some government personnel wanting some huge sums of money from the power sector, and for that matter, they needed to introduce some price build-up or new policy price build-up on the tariff structure to increase end user tariff for the third quarter of 2025. And these are our reasons. First of all, the PURC agrees that CD has appreciated more than 30%, and CD or exchange rate is a major factor in determining end user tariffs locally. So there are certain times even the CD depreciates yet, and that causes a lot of increment of this particular within our market. Fortunately for us, the expected average price projection is on the declining side. And I think I heard one of your commentators mention that even the projected inflation for June is likely going to be around 16%. So the moving average of inflation shouldn't be the 20% that PRC is using, rather should be between 17 to 18% for the third quarter of 2025. However, they use 20%. Even that 20% is quite less than the 22 they used in the previous quarter. So in both cases, these indicators are favorable to the end user. So we're expecting that because of their favorability, price of electricity ought to have decreased. And I think I engaged their head of research on a sister platform where he agreed that price of electricity ought to have increased. However, they mentioned debt, and that is where we have a problem with PRAS when it comes to accountability and transparency in their dealings. The debt issue is that they mentioned that there's a debt in the third and fourth quarter of 2024, which the end user must pay, and the end user paid half of it in the first quarter and second quarter of 2025, and the half will be paid in the third quarter. However, they forgot that within the first and second quarter adjustments, the discos, that is NETCO and then ECG, made a lot of windfall, a lot of gains. And I'll give you the example. If you budgeted an end user tariff based on 15 Ghana cedis, 69 pesos, which is almost 15 Ghana cedis, 70 pesos to the dollar, it means that your expectation is that anytime you sell power, when you are converting that cedi into dollars, it should be around 15 Ghana cedis. And that means that that is the equivalent you are expecting to pay in dollars. However, when the cedi appreciates, what it means is that you may need less cedis to get the same dollars that you would have used to settle the category A players within the power sector. So the appreciation of the cedi gave these companies a lot of windfall. And these companies are getting in excess of 1 billion Ghana cedi windfall that if the PURC has been very transparent with the Ghanaian, they should have mentioned the windfalls or the gains that these discos made as a result of the appreciation of the currency. And that gain could have also been used to settle these areas without introducing any new tariff increment on Ghanaians. Now, the second part is that the PURC added a reserve capacity. And the reserve capacity is a major tariff decision that they ought to have engaged stakeholders, because it's something new you are bringing on the tariff decision paper or on the tariff structure. Every year, every 3 years or 4 years, the last time we had a major tariff review was in 2022, August precisely in 2022. And the August 2022 tariff review indicated what we needed for our tariff review in each quarter. Reserve capacity was not part. So if you're going to add...
I see. So Benjamin, I mean, from your knowledge of the industry, what is this reserve capacity which you think should have been discussed industry-wide?
Yes, so reserve capacity is the allowable reserve that we need to have so that if a plant goes off, we bring it on board, right? And it is 18%. But sometimes it even goes as low as 12%. This year we've had several months that we have 12% of reserve capacity, and there are certain times we have about 22%, and it should be there so that if any of the plants knocks off, we bring them on board so that we don't generate any doomsday or any power generation crisis in Ghana. So it is expected to be part of the build-up, but its expectation must be in consultation with stakeholders, so that stakeholders agree that yes, it's 18% or it's 12% or it's 22%, and that what is the cost of it, so that we know how to infuse that in the tariff structure. That was not done. The second part is that they also mentioned 27% of fuel cost. Now, if you take the 2022 review, major review, there are two nominated fuel products for fuel recovery charge for the IPPs and also VRA. These are heavy fuel oil and also natural gas. And anytime I tell people that natural gas has always been factored in the tariff structure, it is there even today. It is $7.71 or 74 cents, depending on how you look at it, per British thermal unit. So it's factored there, and we've been paying for it. So if you are going to add a new cost of fuel, which you've indicated that is 27% of that, let us know 27% of what, and why is the Ghanaian paying 27%? And that is the opaqueness of their argument. We don't know why we are paying the 27%, and we don't even know the 27% of
so
what
then, Benjamin,
we are paying.
this is also a matter of transparency, which means that indeed the PURC has a lot of questions to answer, not only to Parliament but to the Ghanaian people. But I did want to touch briefly on, before we end our conversation, on the justification of the increase for our debt payment. Remember, they have said that it's not just the 2.45% increment is not the only plan to pay off the debts, but it's a component of the larger plan to pay off these debts. and sustain the industry. You talked about the windfall made by some of the service providers in the power sector chain. But this windfall that they made does not come to the coffers of government alone, does it?
It does. It does, because at the end of the day, government, including, and I think someone even made an argument in the afternoon that PURC always is interested in increasing tariffs because they are also beneficiaries of this tariff increment. Whenever tariffs are increased, they benefit a lot of it. And for that matter, they always think of pushing tariffs higher. And that is why we're expecting that even if they were not going to decrease tariffs by 10% in the third quarter, at least they should zero it, so that government benefits and then the consumer also benefits. However, they are bringing 2.45% without even giving further justification. Now, with respect to the debt issue, we have a lot of maybe levies, we have a lot of sources of revenue for the debt. The Ghanaian is paying for the debt on petroleum products. We've been paying that since 2015. The Ghanaian will likely pay for another debt maybe in August or September when government introduces the D levy or whatever they call it. Government is paying that. But the core contributors of the debt, government is not ready to resolve that issue. According to PRC or Energy Commission report, in 2023, the system losses of ECG was 27%. In 2024, it increased to 32%. Why is the PRC not sanctioning energy ECG for going beyond the benchmark that they have
Benjamin,
set for them?
I'm afraid we're out of time. We'll have to leave our conversation here, but let's pick it up again another time. Benjamin Nsia is from the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. We've just been looking at the 2.45 increments we expected to pay in the next 3 days. And he says, based on his calculation, we should actually be enjoying a decrease, and does not believe that the debt payment or debt payment is enough reason for this increment. We'll take a quick break, but when we come back, at least half a dozen buildings collapsed, raising safety concerns among residents in the tourist city of Cape Coast. I'll tell you more about that when we come back. Don't go away, because this is a really disturbing issue. Welcome back. It's still Ghana Tonight here on TV3 and on 392.7 FM. Now, some 26 people, including children, narrowly escaped death after 2 residential structures in the central region caved in. While no injuries were recorded in the latest incident, a previous building that gave way killed 1 person and sent 2 others to the hospital with varied degrees of injuries. The buildings, one a-story building and a construction collapsed as parts of Cape Coast flooded from the downpour. These incidents have raised serious safety concerns, and that's why I'm bringing in now Cape Coast Mayor. Well, George Arthur is joining us from Cape Coast, where he is mayor. George, good evening to you, and thank you so much for staying up this late for us. But how many buildings have now caved in your city?
Good evening, and thank you. It's a pleasure having me. Yeah, so far we have about 5 buildings. 5 buildings so far. So we have demolished about additional 5, so making 10 for now.
I see. Why are you demolishing these buildings?
Yeah, because it has never been in a good state. It has been in a dangerous and dilapidated state. So we couldn't hold it at all to ensure it also cause further collapse and further injury on people. Otherwise, it would have caused havoc on the good people of Cape Coast or those who are staying in the building. So we have decided to demolish those buildings.
I see, George. How many other buildings are likely to go down because you have identified them to be unsafe?
So far, we have actually earmarked about 3 buildings that we want to demolish. So they are all in a very dangerous state. So we can't wait. We have asked the family to vacate the place, and we have given them up to Monday to vacate the place, so we will be able to demolish it.
I see. When these families vacate what they know to be their homes, what do you do to help them? Where do they go?
Yeah, we have identified a building that is yet to be completed, and it's a market, popularly known as an Afro market. And we are still building, the structure is ongoing. We are building the structure, but we've not completed. So we have identified that place. And today we reached consensus. If I say we reached, I'm talking about the regional minister, Osabre Makoisata, and myself, that we should house these people for the meantime, for the next 3 months, so that we reintegrate them into the society or the system again.
I see. And when you say you reintegrate them, what does that mean?
Yeah, for instance, some of them came to me because the MP for Cape Coast South, Honorable George Kweko Reketegent, came to his constituency on Monday, wanted to support. So he left an amount of 100,000 Ghana cedis with me, and some relief items cost 100,000 Ghana cedi. So, for instance, some of them came to me that they have gotten a place that they need to go and pay the rent. So I have to give them some money, and I did so. So to reintegrate them means some of them are still searching for a place to stay. So once they get a place and they are supposed to pay something, I believe that we will support them halfway to get a place to stay.
While these buildings, cause a scene and collapse and in some cases injure people, it's raised a lot of public safety concerns considering that Cape Coast is a tourist city. What are you doing to assure people that it's safe to come to Cape Coast, it's safe to be in any building at all in Cape Coast?
Yeah, in fact, we are embarking on two major exercises. One of it is restoration. I mean, identifying these buildings that are not highly in dilapidated state, making sure that we restore this building. But with this, we collaborate with some key stakeholders and some key agencies, such as UNESCO and the two members of parliament, Honorable George Kweko Reketegen, Dr. Kwamina Mintanyako, Osabre Marco and others, the regional minister as well, so that we look for some key agency or agents.
I see.
To ensure that we embark on restoration.
I see, George. One other thing you'd have to deal with, George, is the floods that hit Cape Coast, one of which exposed itself yesterday. As mayor of the city, what have you identified to be the problem and how would you deal with it?
Honestly, it's some of them are being caused by some negligence of some citizenry within the metropolis, because they are claiming that the previous administration gave them permit to build on a waterway. I mean, they are blocking where water is supposed to pass. And that one, I have decided that we are going to revoke all these permits and ensuring going forward that we become actually careful in issuing permits to people. And the technical men would also do due diligence so that they don't give permit anyhow. Amen. We are also going to demolish some other buildings that are built on our waterway. And also, those two gutters will be the certain.
I see. Well, George, yes. I'm afraid I'm completely out of time, and so we'll end our conversation. Thank you so much. George Arthur is mayor of Cape Coast. We've just been discussing public safety in the city on the back of some building collapse. He tells us 5 now at this time. The very latest happened only last night, where in total about 26 people escaped death narrowly when 2 buildings came down thanks to the downpour that flooded the city yesterday. There's an exercise to ensure that unsafe buildings, dangerous buildings are demolished and brought to the ground, gutters desilted, buildings in waterways be completely demolished so that waters can freely flow in the city and ensure the city is dry during rains. But that's how we end today's broadcast. I do appreciate your company with us here all the time, every Friday night here on Ghana Tonight. We'll see you same time tomorrow. But as I always do, remember that tomorrow, 7 a.m., Alfred Okanse will be here with his panelists as they discuss the week's biggest issues. And yes, you're right, the CJ's news conference will be front and center tomorrow. The OSP's issues will also be there as well. You want to make time to watch that. But I will see you on Sunday with another edition of Hot Issues at 2 p.m. where we bring you my interview with the MD for PBC Limited. You won't believe some of the things that are taking place in the produce buying company that now has lost a complete market share of the cocoa bean cash crop markets in the country. You want to stay on for that Sunday, 2 p.m. Hot Issues. But I'll go now because my producers are in my ear and it's time for me to go. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.